Major support provided by Chevron, the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, Edison International, Valley Strong Credit Union, California Resources Corporation, Panama Buena Vista Union School District, Bakersfield City School District, and the Kern High School District, with additional production assistance provided by these supporters of education in Kern County and throughout the state of California.
Welcome everybody to Math in the Real World, everyone's favorite part of the show. We got to figure out where the heck we use these numbers in the real world, so we are here. Oh man, we are outdoors in a most amazing place. Brought some of my friends along. Tell us who you are and what you do, because we have a lot of questions for you. Man, what's going on?
Well, my name is Mitchell Coleman. I'm the Conservation Science Manager of the Tejon Ranch Conservancy, and that's kind of a mixed bag. I do all kinds of things. One day I might be repairing a fence to do some kind of cattle management project to enhance riparian values. Another day I might be sweeping the floor in the office. So
jack of all trades.
Yes, so it's a lot of fun. I'm never bored.
Yeah.
But broadly speaking, science and stewardship on Tejon Ranch.
There you go. Sounds pretty exciting.
Plant species surveys, wildlife surveys, easement monitoring, all kinds of things. That's a lot of fun.
I got a lot of questions for you. Next, who do we have?
I'm Paula Harvey, and I am the Education Coordinator for Tejon Ranch Conservancy. And I bring students out on the ranch, and we do real science and investigation out here.
Yes, and you have an amazing classroom out here, Paula. This is
best classroom ever.
Unbelievable. And we have brought...
My name is Magali. I'm the wildlife technician intern, and my job is basically to monitor the cameras that are around the ranch and see the behavior of the animals.
And you can support the claim that this classroom is a little bit bigger than your normal high school classroom, right? Yeah, there you go.
Way bigger.
Good deal. It's so good to have you all. Tell me a little bit about the Conservancy, right? That's who you work for. When someone from Bakersfield says, oh, Tejon Ranch, and they know there's a whole lot of land and some animals up here, but what do you all do?
Speaking from a Bakersfield perspective, when most folks drive up toward what they call the Grapevine, they've actually been on Tejon Ranch before.
Okay.
So when you're driving up the Grapevine, you're driving on the western boundary of Tejon Ranch, the extreme western boundary, up the Grapevine, up through Lebec, and down onto the other side. And so that's what most Bakersfieldians, if I can say so, think of is Tejon Ranch. But Tejon Ranch is the largest private property in the state of California. 270,000 acres. It's one single piece. So if you're driving through the Highway 58 on the way to Tehachapi, you drive through Tejon Ranch.
Okay.
If you drive along Highway 138 toward Lancaster, you're driving through Tejon Ranch in part. If you're driving through the Grapevine, you're driving through Tejon Ranch.
Right.
So it's a huge, huge property from north to south.
And no matter where you're driving, usually, at least it's been my experience, you don't see a whole lot of development. So there's a lot of wildlife out there. We need to make sure people take care of it. And is that kind of part of your job and what you do?
Yes. Tejon Ranch as an entity has been around for over 150 years. Some folks from Bakersfield might recognize the name Beale, if you've ever been to the Beale Memorial Library.
Sure.
Edward Fitzgerald Beale, he came into this part of the world even before this was part of the United States and fell in love with this area.
Yeah.
He was the ranch's initial landowner.
He has good taste. It's a pretty amazing area.
He had excellent taste. Yeah. So he consolidated the property boundaries of Tejon Ranch into what it is today. His son, Truxton Beale.
There you go.
So that's where we get Truxton Avenue in Bakersfield. Right. So the Beales were a big family back in this area. They were the initial landowners. The Chandler family, they were big in the LA Times back in the day. And then now the landowner is the Tejon Ranch Company.
Right.
They are a for-profit corporation company.
Gotcha. And that's part of the deal, right? I mean, you can, with commercialism throughout the world, right? People, I'm sure, look at this place and go, hey, California, we'd like to build some things there. but we all know that there's some amazing wildlife here, right? And we want to make sure that that's protected. And is that your job, to protect the wildlife, or to at least monitor what's going on?
Exactly,
Okay.
yes. So starting in the late 1980s, early 1990s, the landowner, the Tejon Ranch Company, started to have an eye toward development. They wanted to pursue various projects. They knew that they were going to run into some potential legal challenges. So they had the foresight to approach environmental organizations from the get-go. In the early 2000s, over the course of a number of years, they sat down with really formal meetings with a bunch of different stakeholders. And over the course of those meetings, they hammered out the details of what we now call the ranch-wide agreement, which was finalized in 2008.
Gotcha. So gosh, there's so many things to hear about this thing. We want to make sure we get into some of the wildlife and what you all do specifically to help out, not only have people learn about all the things you're talking about, but also to protect the things that are here. We are back. A little math in the real world, and we have changed locations. Mitchell, tell us where we are. This is the most amazing place I've been in a long time. It's really neat down here.
So we are standing in the Tohono Creek Watershed,
Okay.
one of the namesakes for the Tejon Ranch. And right here, we are standing in Shenak Creek, which is part of that watershed.
Right. Gotcha. And there's some unique things going on here as far as making sure that this area stays the way it is, or even becomes better, right? What are you doing in this area specifically to make sure that this place stays just as amazing as it is?
Right, so the Conservancy is charged with enhancing the conservation values of Tejon Ranch through time. And one of those main ways we do that is working specifically with our riparian corridors. And so here in the Shenak pasture, as we call it, we're working collaboratively with the Tejon Ranch Company and their cattle lessee to manage the way that cattle move through this country, specifically having cattle elsewhere during the summertime, generally between May and October, so that the creek is free from cattle during that time when the willows and the poplars and the other vegetation is predominantly growing and really sensitive. And simply by keeping the cattle out of the creek during the summertime, we see a really, really strong response. This is an area that we've been managing for about 3-4 years now, and all of these young willows and poplars that we can see right here came up since that time.
Wow. And that makes sense because you're keeping the big, large animals out of the water, out of the banks, away from this area, so that it can just kind of develop naturally, right? And they're not going to be trotting it down all the time.
Correct.
And we want to know what other kind of things we have going on right here. So you can't be here 24 hours, right? So what do you do to find out what else is happening here when you're not here?
Well, in response to that basic management approach of seasonal grazing management, we measure specific things. We measure plant composition. So we lay tape measures here from one side of the creek to the other, and year after year, that same tape measure look at how the plant community composition and the structural complexity of the trees and so forth are changing year after year. We monitor birds and we monitor reptiles and frogs and things like that.
Yeah.
And then we also monitor wildlife.
Yeah.
And so to that end, we have some wildlife cameras.
Yeah, let's see one right now.
Yeah, we have a wildlife camera right here.
Sure.
And so the basic purpose in putting wildlife cameras here is to see, is the wildlife, is their behavior, is their density changing in response to the creek, but getting in better condition over time.
Yeah.
And so to that end, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Maggie, right?
Meg, what are we going to do here? We're going to make sure this thing's working right?
Yeah, I'm gonna demonstrate how we come and we check the cameras. Let's see.
And so this is just monitoring whatever wildlife. It's triggered by motion, is that correct?
Yes, these are motion detecting, so anything that passes by, it'll detect it.
Day or night, right?
Yes, day or night.
Okay.
So basically we just open them and we turn them on. We check we check to see if they're full or not.
And when you're talking about full, if the memory card is full of
the memory
videos
card
that it's taken.
Exactly.
Right.
We also have to check the battery level. So every time we come in, we check that to see that we have enough battery so that we can actually capture the videos.
Right.
So all we have to do is just take out the SD card if it's full, we grab a new one from our empty folder, and then we just put it back in.
And then the real work begins on your part, right? Because you got to sift through all the data that is collected
Yes.
and figure out which ones are the same animal coming by 17 times in a night, or a new
Exactly.
species, or a new different type of animal coming
Yeah.
by.
So once we do that, we just arm the camera. We set it so that it's taking, so that it's just recording videos.
Yeah,
We check to see that it's blinking red.
there you go. It's ready to go. So it's
And-
filming us at the moment.
Yes, it is. So whenever I go back to look at these, we're gonna see pictures of us.
That's right. There you
And
go.
then
Now,
we
how
just
often do you
close
come out
it.
here and check these cameras? Because I mean, wildlife can come at any time.
Well, we come in as soon as we can, really.
Got to make sure you catch whatever's on there.
Yes.
Oh, wow, this is so cool. We can't get a picture of all the things that are happening around here, but somebody's got some pictures of what's happening. We want to know a little bit more about how the numbers factor into all this fun stuff, and heck, we might even see a different place. Did you know that math continues in the real world, whether you like it or not? We are at another location of one of these trail cameras here out on the Tejon Ranch, and it's just a perfectly picturesque spot. Mitchell, tell us a little bit more about what we see here. You're looking, I know, as a scientist and an ecologist, and you want to make sure that you know what's going on in this area so you can take it back to other folks who make decisions about what areas to build on and what areas you want to keep serene, right? So you talked a little bit last time about the data that you collect. What kind of data would you collect from an area like this?
Well, from the last location we were at, relative to this one, we're still along the same creek.
Okay, gotcha.
And so this is Shenat Creek, but we're higher up in the watershed now. So if you look at the creek and the way it is, and if you take a look at the vegetation here relative to where we were previously, the creek is deeper, it's actively flowing, the vegetation is larger, it's more robust here.
Right.
And so functionally, we're in a quite different sort of set of ecosystem conditions, but still the same creek system.
Right.
And we're within the same management regime for grazing management that we were previously. So we are at one of the locations of the wildlife cameras, and so we've been monitoring changes in wildlife movement throughout this area since 2014. This is one of our older cameras.
Okay.
But we also, through here, we've run vegetation transects to assess vegetation changes over time. We've done that since 2018. Bird surveys, herpetofauna surveys,
Right.
you name it. We do grass surveys. There's a bunch of different indices.
And so you have to be able to collect as much data as possible so that when you go and present to the group who wants to build in a certain area or develop a certain area, you can say this would be a better area than this one because this is the data we have where there's lots of wildlife we want to make sure we keep safe, right?
Exactly, yes. The ranch-wide management plan, which the Conservancy and the landowner use to assess conservation values and protect conservation values of the ranch through time, is under an adaptive approach. And so by collecting data here, through time, we can analyze that data, we can use statistics, we can say, well, based on, for example, 5 years of grazing management, it really looks like this is paying off in this area, but one of the other areas where we've been doing it, maybe not so much. And then we can also take the data that we're collecting to the science community and say, look at what we've accomplished with this project. Statistically speaking, we know that if we do X, Y, and Z, the plants, the animals, the birds, the soils, the waters, they all benefit.
Yeah,
And so
and that's where the numbers come in.
That's where
we
the numbers
love
come
those
in.
numbers.
Yes.
Awesome. Now, Paula, we want to make sure students can have a little bit of experience out here, right? We want to make sure that people can enjoy this area, but it's not a public area. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how students sometimes get a chance, an opportunity to come out here and enjoy this amazing area just like we're standing here today.
Well, if students or teachers want to do a field trip on Tejon Ranch, they contact me.
There you go, good. That's exciting. There are opportunities.
There are lots of opportunities. So I can design something for teachers. We can do multiple trips. We can do one-time trips.
Yeah.
And most of the things that we do with nature journals.
Good deal.
So
yeah,
we're
so when they
doing-
get here, they're going to be responsible not only enjoying, but being able to record something. What kind of things do they record in here?
So for example, I'll just show you this one that I did a while ago. I was very much interested in a puddle.
Yeah.
And so on this little map that I drew, there was a little puddle here. And I then studied the animals that lived in that puddle.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we study it is, the first thing is we do observation. We just spend time watching it and studying it and thinking about it silently. And then we write about it, we measure, and we draw or sketch. So we use 3 different techniques in order to study the different kinds of plants or animals that we find on the ranch. This
And I
is
have to
nature
ask you real
journaling.
quick, I'm wondering if one of the most difficult things to get students to do is the very first one you mentioned.
The writing?
To sit here and be quiet.
The observation, yes.
Just to be quiet and see what's going on around them, because we don't practice that very much in our society, right?
That's
There's
right.
almost always noise coming our way.
But I teach all of that. So I teach everybody how to quietly sit and listen and watch and look, and how to create a nature journal. And it's so much fun. Students have such a good time. I'm happy to say that we do this without charging schools.
Oh, wow, that's great.
So teachers, students, if you're interested in coming out, contact me and we'll make that happen.
Yeah, we got to get some more students out here. It's too good to let it just sit here and not have anyone observe. And I like the fact that students are responsible to bring something back, not only to show their teacher that they've done something, or to show their principal they've done something, but so they have something to keep for themselves, right? So they know,
Right.
hey, listen, I was there, I kind of remember, oh, but there was this other part I wrote down, and now I know what's going on there.
And they oftentimes will develop questions through that whole process.
Good.
That's part of it, is becoming very curious. It's called intentional curiosity. And then go back to school and do further research to find answers to some of those questions.
Yeah, all right. Always promoting a little education. I'm sure there's some numbers in there too that we could get into, but man,
Lots of
I'm
them.
so interested in the amazing things that are going on here. Not just what we're surrounded with, but what could potentially be part of this area if it's managed correctly, right? And what it was like maybe 100 years ago and what it could be like 100 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you all so much for the work that you do and allowing us to come out here, because I learned a ton. Heck, we may even come back.